the immaculate reception. On December 23, 1972, at Three Rivers Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the AFC divisional playoff between the Steelers and Raiders was nearing its end, and Oakland held a 7-6 lead. With just 22 seconds remaining, Pittsburgh faced a desperate 4th and 10. Quarterback Terry Bradshaw dropped back and fired a pass downfield. The ball collided with Raiders safety Jack Tatum, bounced wildly, and appeared destined for the turf. But in one of football's most improbable moments, rookie running back Franco Harris scooped the ball just inches above the ground, sprinting 60 yards into the end zone for a touchdown that stunned the Raiders and the entire football world. For Harris, it was only the beginning. That rookie season, he rushed for over 1,000 yards and was named Offensive Rookie of the Year. Over his Hall of Fame career, he earned 9 Pro Bowl selections, 4 Super Bowl rings, and the Super Bowl IX MVP, finishing with more than 12,000 rushing yards and 91 rushing touchdowns. The play itself became immortalized as the Immaculate Reception. It delivered the Steelers' first ever playoff victory and marked the birth of a dynasty that would dominate the 1970s. To this day, the moment remains shrouded in controversy. Debates still rage over whether Harris made a legal catch, but its impact is unquestioned. The Immaculate Reception is remembered as the most famous play in NFL history, a single, extraordinary touchdown that transformed a franchise and helped define the league itself. The Hail Mary. On December 28, 1975, inside Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota, the Dallas Cowboys trailed the Minnesota Vikings 14-10 in the NFC Divisional Playoff. Just 32 seconds remained. Everything came down to one last desperate throw. Roger Staubach, the Cowboys quarterback already known as Captain Comeback, dropped back and launched a deep pass down the right sideline. 50 yards in the air, it fell toward wide receiver Drew Pearson, who made a twisting adjustment, secured the ball against his hip, and crossed into the end zone. With just 24 seconds left, Dallas had stolen a 17-14 victory. In the locker room, reporters asked Staubach what he was thinking when he threw it. He replied that he closed his eyes and said a Hail Mary. That single remark forever branded last-second desperation heaves with a new name, the Hail Mary pass. The play not only propelled Dallas forward, but also etched Staubach and Pearson deeper into football history. Pearson, later a Hall of Famer, became one of the era's most feared receivers, while Staubach added to his legend as the ultimate clutch quarterback. Nearly 5 decades later, every time a quarterback launches a desperate throw toward the end zone, the echoes of that night in Minnesota remind us where the Hail Mary was truly born. Sea of Hands. On December 21, 1974, at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, the Raiders faced the 2-time defending champion Miami Dolphins in the AFC Divisional Playoff. The Dolphins, chasing a 3rd straight Super Bowl, led 26-21 with just 35 seconds left. The Raiders were on Miami's 8-yard line, their season hanging by a thread. Quarterback Ken Stabler, the league's 1974 MVP, took the snap and rolled left. About to be pulled down by defensive end Vern Den Herter, he fired a desperate pass into a crowd of defenders and receivers. What followed would be remembered forever as the Sea of Hands. Running back Clarence Davis, known more for his toughness than his catching ability, leapt into the swarm. Surrounded by Dolphins defenders, he somehow clutched the ball, wrestling it away as bodies collided around him. He hit the ground in the end zone with possession intact. Touchdown Raiders. Oakland now led 28-26, toppling Miami's dynasty and ending their streak of 3 straight Super Bowl appearances. For Stabler, it was another example of his late-game brilliance. For Davis, it was the defining moment of his career. The play's name came from the sight of countless arms reaching for the ball, but only one man emerging with it. It was improbable, dramatic, and unforgettable. To this day, the Sea of Hands stands as one of the greatest and most iconic touchdowns in NFL history. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'll greatly appreciate it if you could show support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you. Miracle at the Meadowlands. On November 19th, 1978, at Giants Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey, the New York Giants led the Philadelphia Eagles 17-12 with only 31 seconds left. The Eagles had no timeouts. All the Giants had to do was kneel and the game was over. But instead, quarterback Joe Pisarcik attempted a handoff to fullback Larry Csonka. The exchange went wrong. The ball slipped free. And out of the chaos, Eagles cornerback Herm Edwards scooped it up and sprinted 26 yards into the end zone. In a single heartbeat, what looked like a certain Giants victory turned into a stunning 19-17 win for Philadelphia. For Herm Edwards, an undrafted defensive back fighting to make his mark, it was the first touchdown of his NFL career, and the moment that etched his name into football history. The fallout was immediate. Giants offensive coordinator Bob Gibson was fired the very next day and never coached again. But the impact went even further. That single botched handoff convinced the league that no game should ever be lost in such fashion again. From that moment, teams across the NFL adopted the quarterback kneel, the victory formation, now the standard way to close out games, the Holy Roller. On September 10, 1978, at San Diego Stadium, the Oakland Raiders trailed the San Diego Chargers 20-14 with just 10 seconds left. Quarterback Ken Stabler, pressured and falling to the turf, intentionally let the ball slip forward. It rolled toward the goal line, where running back Pete Banaszak dove, but instead batted it closer. At the 5-yard line, tight end Dave Casper lunged, nearly kicking the ball ahead before finally smothering it in the end zone as the clock hit 0. Touchdown Raiders. Casper, known as the Ghost, was already an All-Pro and Super Bowl champion, but this score would become the most controversial highlight of his career. Officials ruled it a legal forward fumble, not a pass, and the extra point sealed a 21-20 victory for Oakland. The Chargers protested furiously, but the decision stood. The uproar that followed shook the league. Critics called it a mockery of the rules, accusing the Raiders of manipulating chaos into victory. By the following season, the NFL changed its rulebook. After the 2-minute warning, or on 4th down, only the player who fumbles may recover and advance the ball. This became forever known as the Holy Roller Rule. What began as desperation turned into legend. Dave Casper's touchdown that not only stole a win, but forced the NFL to rewrite its laws of the game. The catch. On January 10, 1982, at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, the NFC Championship between the 49ers and the Cowboys came down to one final drive. San Francisco trailed 27-21 with less than a minute to play. On 3rd and 3 from the 6-yard line, Joe Montana rolled right under heavy pressure. With Dallas defenders closing in, he lofted a high pass toward the back of the end zone. Dwight Clark leapt into the air, fully extended, and snatched the ball with his fingertips. The catch that tied the game and set up the extra point for a 28-27 victory. Clark wasn't a top draft pick. He entered the league in 1979 as a 10th rounder, but he became Montana's trusted target. Across 9 seasons, he recorded 506 receptions, 6,750 yards, 48 touchdowns, 2 Pro Bowl selections, and a first-team All-Pro honor in 1982. Yet no stat defines him more than that soaring grab in the back of the end zone. Why is this play remembered as one of the greatest in NFL history? Because it did more than win a game. It ended the Cowboys' dominance of the 1970s and launched the 49ers into a new era. San Francisco would go on to win Super Bowls 16 weeks later and 4 more throughout the decade. The catch became the moment that signaled the birth of the 49ers dynasty, and it remains one of the most iconic touchdowns the game has ever seen. The 99-yard run. January 3, 1983. Monday Night Football inside the Metrodome. The Dallas Cowboys were backed up on their own 1-yard line against the Minnesota Vikings, a dangerous spot that usually means punting is just a play away. But in the span of seconds, Tony Dorsett turned that field position nightmare into one of the most iconic moments in NFL history. The Cowboys lined up short-handed, only 10 men on the field, their fullback missing. The ball was handed to Dorsett, and with one decisive cut, he found a crease. Bursting through the line, he accelerated past defenders, and suddenly there was nothing but open field ahead. 99 yards later, he crossed into the end zone. It remains the longest possible rushing touchdown in NFL history, a record that cannot be broken, only tied. For Dorsett, this run was more than a highlight. A Heisman Trophy winner at Pitt, Super Bowl champion with Dallas, 4-time Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer, he had already carved out a legendary career. But this play, with no margin for error and no extra blocker, became the defining snapshot of his speed, vision, and instinct. What makes the moment unforgettable is that it was history made against the odds. 99 yards, 10 teammates, and one man whose name will forever be linked to a record no one else can surpass. Music City Miracle, On January 8, 2000, at Adelphia Coliseum in Nashville, Tennessee, the AFC wildcard matchup between the Tennessee Titans and Buffalo Bills is down to its final seconds. Buffalo has just taken a 16-15 lead with only 16 seconds left. The home crowd braces for heartbreak. On the ensuing kickoff, fullback Lorenzo Neal fields the ball at the Titans' 25. He immediately hands it to tight end Frank Wycheck. Wycheck takes a few steps, then swings a long lateral across the field to wide receiver Kevin Dyson. Dyson secures it, turns up the left sideline, and with a wall of blockers clearing the way, he races 75 yards untouched into the end zone. In a flash, despair turns into euphoria. The Titans win 22-16 and the stadium erupts. The play became known as the Music City Miracle, one of the most famous in NFL history. Controversy swirled. Was Wycheck's throw a true lateral or a forward pass? After a tense replay review, officials ruled it legal and the touchdown stood. That moment propelled the Titans through the playoffs all the way to their first Super Bowl appearance. For Kevin Dyson, it was the defining highlight of a career that also included the unforgettable ending of Super Bowl 34. For Frank Wycheck, a three-time Pro Bowler, it was his signature play, cementing his place in Titans lore. When Wycheck passed away in 2023 and was later diagnosed with CTE, his name carried both the glory of this miracle and the sobering reality of the game's toll. The Music City Miracle remains more than a touchdown. It's a reminder that in the NFL, one play can change everything. The 100-yard pick six. Super Bowl 43. February 1st, 2009. Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals were locked in a tight fight when one of the greatest defensive plays in NFL history unfolded. With just 18 seconds before halftime, Arizona quarterback Kurt Warner dropped back, looking for a game-tying touchdown. But at the goal line, Steelers linebacker James Harrison read the throw perfectly. The reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year stepped in front of the pass, secured the ball, and began a run that would rewrite history. Harrison charged down the sideline, weaving past tacklers, with teammates forming a convoy. Exhaustion set in as he approached the end zone, but he refused to stop. 100 yards later, he collapsed across the goal line as time expired, the longest play in Super Bowl history at the time, and still the longest interception return in the game's history. For Harrison, an undrafted free agent who built his career on relentlessness and power, this moment defined his legacy. The touchdown swung momentum, giving Pittsburgh a 17-7 halftime lead, and it remains one of the most unforgettable plays ever seen on football's biggest stage. Santonio Holmes toe tap. On February 1st, 2009, Super Bowl 43 at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals were locked in a 23-20 thriller with less than a minute left. Then came one of the most iconic moments in NFL history. On the Steelers' final 78-yard drive, Santonio Holmes became the centerpiece, hauling in 4 catches for 73 yards. With just 35 seconds remaining, Ben Roethlisberger rolled right and fired a high pass into the far corner of the end zone. Holmes leapt, cradled the ball, and dragged both toes inches inside the boundary. The official signaled touchdown, sealing a 27-23 victory. Holmes finished with 9 receptions for 131 yards and was named Super Bowl MVP, delivering Pittsburgh its record-setting 6th Lombardi Trophy. NFL Films president Steve Sabol later called it the greatest touchdown catch in league history, not just for its precision and difficulty, but for the stakes. In the biggest game of his life, Santonio Holmes made a catch that remains etched as one of the defining plays in Super Bowl history. Miracle at the Meadowlands 2. On December 19, 2010, at the new Meadowlands Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Philadelphia Eagles trailed the New York Giants 31-10 with just over 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. What followed was one of the most improbable comebacks in NFL history, capped by a play forever remembered as the Miracle at the Meadowlands 2. With the score tied 31-31 and only 14 seconds remaining, Giants punter Matt Dodge was instructed to kick the ball out of bounds. Instead, he sent a line drive punt directly to Deshaun Jackson, one of the most explosive returners in the league. Jackson bobbled the ball at the start, sending shock through the crowd, but quickly recovered. He cut through defenders, reversed field, and turned on his blazing speed. 65 yards later, he crossed into the end zone as time expired. It was the first and only walk-off punt return touchdown in NFL history. For Jackson, already a Pro Bowl wide receiver and return man, this sealed his place as one of the most dangerous playmakers of his era. For the Eagles, it completed a 28-point rally in just over 7 minutes, stealing the NFC East showdown. And for the Giants, it marked one of the most crushing collapses the league had ever seen. The miracle at the Meadowlands, too, wasn't just a touchdown. It was history. The moment when one punt, one mistake, and one flash of brilliance decided everything at the final second. Beastquake, January 8, 2011, Quest Field in Seattle. The NFC wildcard matchup between the Seahawks and the defending champion Saints was expected to be one-sided. But late in the fourth quarter, with Seattle clinging to a 34-30 lead, Marshawn Lynch etched his name into NFL history. Taking the handoff at his own 33-yard line, Lynch burst through the line and began shedding defenders. One after another, he broke free, 9 tackles in total, pushing, stiff-arming, and bulldozing his way downfield. 67 yards later, he dove into the end zone as the stadium erupted. The roar of the crowd was so intense that seismic sensors near the stadium actually registered ground movement, a moment forever remembered as the Beastquake. For Lynch, it was the defining play of his career, embodying the relentless power of beast mode. The touchdown sealed Seattle's shocking 41-36 upset of New Orleans and became one of the most iconic runs in NFL playoff history. It wasn't just a score. It was an earthquake that shook the game, the city, and the legacy of Marshawn Lynch, the Philly Special. On February 4, 2018, at the US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Super Bowl 52 between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots was a clash of underdog grit against dynasty dominance. With just 38 seconds left in the first half and the Eagles facing 4th and goal from the 1, head coach Doug Peterson made a decision that would change football history. Nick Foles walked to the sideline and asked, "You want Philly?" Peterson paused, then said, "Yeah, let's do it." On the snap, Corey Clement took the direct handoff, flipped it to Trey Burton, who rolled right and lofted a pass to the unlikeliest of receivers, quarterback Nick Foles, wide open in the end zone. A touchdown, and with it, the birth of the Philly Special. For Foles, a backup who had replaced Carson Wentz late in the season, this moment was the ultimate statement. He became the first player in Super Bowl history to both throw and catch a touchdown in the same game. By the end of the night, he had thrown for 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, and claimed Super Bowl MVP as the Eagles defeated Tom Brady and the Patriots 41-33 to capture their first Lombardi trophy. The Philly Special is remembered as one of the greatest touchdowns in NFL history because it was daring, perfectly executed, and came against the league's most dominant dynasty. It wasn't just a trick play. It was the symbol of a city, a team, and a quarterback who believed when few others did. Minneapolis Miracle. On January 14, 2018, inside US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, the NFC divisional playoff between the Minnesota Vikings and New Orleans Saints had come down to its final 10 seconds. The Vikings trailed 24-23, their season balanced on one desperate play. Quarterback Case Keenum, once an undrafted journeyman, lined up for what seemed like a prayer. He took the snap, dropped back, and launched a high pass down the right sideline. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs leapt at the Saints' 34-yard line, secured the ball, and, seeing no defender in front of him, turned upfield. Rookie safety Marcus Williams had whiffed on the tackle, leaving nothing but open field. Diggs sprinted untouched into the end zone as the clock struck 0. The 61-yard touchdown gave the Vikings a 29-24 victory and instantly became known as the Minneapolis Miracle. For Keenum, it was the signature moment of a career-best season. For Diggs, it was the defining highlight of his Minnesota years. And for NFL history, it was unprecedented, the first playoff game ever to end with a regulation-time walk-off touchdown. The stadium erupted in chaos. Saints players crumbled in disbelief, and Paul Allen's radio call echoed nationwide. It's a Minneapolis Miracle. More than just a game winner, it was a play that rewrote the rulebook and carved itself into NFL legend forever. Miami Miracle. On December 9, 2018, inside Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, the Miami Dolphins were trailing the New England Patriots 33-28 with just 7 seconds left. 99 times out of 100, the game is over. But this time, history was about to be written. Ryan Tannehill took the snap and fired a quick strike to Kenny Stills. With defenders closing in, Stills lateraled to Devontae Parker, who immediately flipped it back to Kenyon Drake. What happened next stunned the football world. Drake cut across the field, dodging tackles as time expired. Only one man stood between him and the end zone, Rob Gronkowski, placed deep as a last-second safety. But Gronk lost his footing and Drake streaked past, diving into the end zone for a 69-yard touchdown. The Dolphins had pulled off the unthinkable, a 34-33 walk-off victory. For Kenyon Drake, it became the signature moment of his career. For the Dolphins, it was a play instantly branded the Miami Miracle. It was the first walk-off touchdown in NFL history involving multiple laterals and the longest game-winning play to end regulation since the 1970 merger. Against a Patriots dynasty that seemed untouchable, Miami delivered one of the most shocking and unforgettable touchdowns ever witnessed. If you enjoyed this video, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much.